G'day guys, in this video I'm going to show you how I've rebuilt the front, center and rear limited slip diffs using these Vitavon cups. These are the Vitavon parts that I've used. I'll show you them in detail. I'm also going to show you what happened to my rear diff gears, my front diff gears. I'm also going to explain what these are. G'day guys, Dave from West Oz RC here again, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be fitting these Vitavon diff cups into the Mojave's rear diff, center diff and front diff. As you can see, I've already got the diff out in the rear. The diff is out in the center and I've still got to pull the one at the front. Right, so let's get into it. Right, so first of all, huge shout out to Vitavon for supplying these fantastic diff cups. I'm gonna open them up. I'm gonna do the first one. These are the parts that you need for the Mojave EXB, the 29mm diff housings. As you guys can see, it really chewed out the diff cups. I'll put a photograph up here and you can have a look and see how badly the diff cups died in my second run. There was no oil in it whatsoever, so yeah, not a great thing by ARRMA, I guess. A huge shout out to Clint from ModelFlight for sending me these new gears for my rear diff. Thank you so much, Clint. I really appreciate it. If you guys want a great hobby shop, ModelFlight is the one to go to here in Australia. What I want to do first is I want to show you guys, I'm not going to be using these gears, but I just wanted to show you how good this stuff is to get rid of the silicone grease. Now this stuff here is electronic circuit board cleaner from J-Car. Now this has only been sitting in there for about 10 minutes and you can see how the silicone is coming off those components really well. A lot of people try to use brake cleaner, but it just doesn't work. I'm finding that this electronic circuit board cleaner works really well. So just wanted to show you guys that. Check this out guys. So when the planetary shaft was inside the slot, you can see how tight it is up the top, but as it goes down in there from reverse to forward, you can see how much movement that pin has, and it's worn sockets in the bottom of the slots there. You can see it moving in there. Just have a look at that. That's probably nearly 5 to 10 degrees. So that's what happens when your diff does not have any oil in it. So in ARRMA 310985 diff gear set, you get the sun gears and you get the planetary or satellite gears and you get the crossbars. I've got to pull out all the components from the original, which I'll do right now. Just grab the pin with your pliers and pull that out. Give it a bit of a clean up. Now these pins, guys, are 2.5mm in diameter, and the original Creighton ones that I've got that I cut from a drill are 2.25. So the EXB are 0.25 thicker than standard. So we pull the drive cup out. You take your seal bearings out. So the next thing we do is we pull these shims out that are at the bottom of the cup, the original cup. And then we've also got a O-ring that you've got to make sure that you pull out of the inside of the cup also. And that is completely emptied out now. So I'm doing the rear diff at the moment, guys. So I'm going to be using 10K oil in the rear. Now the center, I'll talk about the center in a minute once I've done the rear. So before I even start, what I'll do is I'll just clean all the components. A larger shim goes to the bottom and then the smaller one at the top. So we pop the O-ring in the inside first, just like that. Put the bearing on and throw your out drive in. Throw your large shim in first and then the smaller shim. Just like that. Vitavon also supply you with the grub screw. So remove that and we throw the pin in there and we line up with the center of the drive pin inside. Here we go guys, the pin's lined up inside and we can now put the grub screw back inside. With a little bit of blue Loctite, we throw that in there. It should bottom out and you just nip it up like that. All done. So because we're going with a more of an open diff in the rear, what we have to do is, it's always a good idea to have a look at your instructions. So we're going to be using the minimum effect where the two locking plates go together and the spinning plate sits on the outside of the crown gear. So that's the minimum effect. So basically how that works is, also another thing guys, is there's two sides to these plates. So off this edge here, it's more square than this side. This is a rounded, as you can see, it's more of a rounded edge on this side here than it is on this side. So this side here has got like a squarer edge and this is the rounded edge. So the squarer edge goes towards the diff cup. The rounded edges go towards the planetary and the center of the diff. So I'm going to use this as a open diff. So what we do is that edge there goes on the inside of the diff cup, just like that. Next one, again, this is the rounded edge side. This is the squarer edge side. So the rounded edge side goes also in there like that. So we've got two locking plates at the bottom. And then the spinning plate, which actually locks onto the base of the sun gear like that. That's the one that, as the sun gear turns, it also turns the spinning plate. And it only has one surface that it rubs against on the inside of the locking plate, just like that. So before I put the crown gear with the spinning plate on the locked plates, because this is the rear diff, I'm using the 10K oil. So what I like to do is I like to put a little bit of oil in there first, just to put some in there, because I'd like to make sure that the plates get instant lubrication. Drop this straight into there. So there we have it guys. When you've put your gear in, that the top of the gear is level with the diff cup pin, just like that in there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the planetary gears on. Planetary gears face on the inside. And then we've got plates that go, rounded edge goes towards the gear. So when these go in guys, the cutouts of these shim plates go on the top and the bottom, just like that. Once again, we put the planetaries facing in and the side plates, that goes towards the center. And we just drop it in straight like that guys, and there we have it. We then put the silicone oil inside the diff. And guys, just slowly spin the diff gears around. The next thing guys is we're going to put the sun gear back on top on this way. So we just drop that in like that. And pop this one on the inside there like that. That's your spinning plate. Then we grab a locking plate, and now we're looking at the square edge facing up, because the rounded edge is going to be in. So the rounded edge goes down towards the gear and we lock it in like that there. And that guys is the completed diff assembly. Once we're done with that, we grab the crown gear, and then you just line up those holes. There we go guys. All right, so we are done. So the next diff guys I'm going to do is the center diff. I'm going to stick with the factory settings of it being maximum effect. The maximum effect is in the center and the front, and the rear has the minimum effect. I'm also going from 100k to 200k in the center diff. I've gone with the 10k in the rear, and I'm also going to go with 10k in the front. Now that we've got the locking plate in there, I'm going to be putting the spinning plate, which has the rounded edge, which is this edge here. That will go inside there. And then the third plate, which is the locking plate again, goes rounded edge up, and that sits in there just like that. So now you can see that when you turn the pin is turning the plate on the inside. Here, what I do is I like to put a little bit of oil in there so that before I put the sun gear on, I've already got oil in the back. I'm going to lubricate it as soon as I start turning this when the truck's straight on power. So I grab my 200k and I put the tiniest amount in there. Now, this is really thick stuff, guys. I'm going to put the sun gear straight on top of it and lock that into place. And there we go. So I know now that those two plates are spinning around in there, and I've got my locking plates on each side of the spinning plate for the maximum LSD effect. Next thing we do, guys, is we put the Planetary Gear crossbars in. There we go, guys. So that is all locked in. You can see that the groove of these plates are facing up. Grab more of our oil. When you get it into the diff, guys, just spin the gears real slowly just to get it to the base of the cup. Put a little bit of oil around the edges there. I want to pop the gasket on there. So there we go. We just put the gasket in there and just sticks nicely to the edge there. Okay, so we've got a fair bit of oil in there. I think that's a pretty good amount. We pop the crown gear in there. And then we're going for the maximum effect on this side also. So make sure that you follow the same LSD diff pattern as on the inside as to this side here. Rounded edge faces on the inside. Second plate, so the rounded edge goes towards the diff, and we're dropping that in like that. We take our final plate, the rounded bits go onto the rounded bit where the bolt goes into. So that there is the final plate for the maximum effect limited slip diff. So you've got locking plate, spinning plate, and then another locking plate. Once you've got that to that point there, guys, you just have a look and see which way you've lined up your pin grooves and just pop that into that like that. Turn it around so that you've got your screw holes in there. There we have it. All 4 bolts are back in there. The grub screw is back in there. We've got 200k in there. It's pretty stiff. You can feel it when you're trying to turn it. There's quite a bit of resistance in there, which is exactly what you want. Right, guys, so we're going to rebuild the front diff. This is going to have the maximum effect, where it goes locking plate, slipping plate, locking plate on the back of the sun gear. Those rounded bits there go onto the bolt hole. I then pop the rounded edge of the slipping plate on the inside of that. And the rounded edge again, which is this side, goes to the locking side of the diff cup. So there we go. We can actually see the pin spinning around the plate in between the 2 locking plates. I'm going to throw a little bit of oil. I'm using 10k on the front. So now we drop the sun gear on the top of the drive cup, spin it around so it's locked, and that the drive cup and the top of the gear are level. So that should be spinning around nicely in there. Next things we do is we get our planetary gears. The rounded edge goes on the inside towards the rear of the planetary gear. Make sure the shaft cut is at the top. We put the next one together. And we lock them in place like that. Then you pick up the bottom one that's holding the top one. Just drop them in like that. Just make sure that the plates, there we go, and that's in nice and firm. You can see when you spin that around, all 4 gears are spinning around. Press them down nice and firm. Next thing we do is we throw some 10K oil in there. So just let that sit for about a couple of minutes, just so that the oil seeps down and also gets into, you've also got to make sure that the oil gets down into these bar areas here where the bars are. And we put enough oil in there that it's about 2 millimeters from the top of the cup. I think that is pretty good. That's heaps. We grab our next new sun gear. We pop that in there. And we're going to go with maximum effect on this side too. So we first go with the locking plate. The rounded part goes towards the gears. So we go with the little rounded bit there on the corner, and that goes on the nut hole, the bolt hole. The next is the spinning plate that locks onto the sun gear. The rounded part goes towards the gear, and that locks onto the sun gear. Last plate is the rounded edge again towards the gear, and that locks on just like that. We then grab the crown gear. I'm just lining up the holes with the shaft grooves. I'm going to do the same with this, so that those line up with the holes. And I'm going to line up the gasket also with the holes. And there we go, just like that. Throw a little bit of Loctite. Lock them down and just spin the diff, guys. And just make sure you're getting nice free movement. That you can see that that's just spinning beautifully. And that just feels absolutely excellent. Okay. So now we're just going to pop these back into the car. All done, guys. So the front diff is with the maximum effect, and so is the center diff, maximum effect, and rear diff is the minimum effect. Here are the diff gears from the rear. Have a look at these. They're all chipped like crazy. That's the rear, and even the planetaries are pretty much shot. And the fronts don't look bad, but they are completely sheared off. The top of the gears are sheared off. At least 0.5 millimeter is missing on all the gears. So again, huge shout out to ModelFlight in South Australia for sending me 2 gear sets on warranty. Thank you so much, Andrew and Clint. Another huge shout out to Vitavon. Thanks for a fantastic product. Those cups are absolutely brilliant. So hopefully none of that stuff will happen again. Right, check out the next video, guys. I'm going to have a new run with this and see how it goes. And thanks for the views. Subscribe and like and share, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.